Namaste, my name is Vrushali Potnis Damle and I am a PhD student at the Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai. It has been a really long journey for me being associated with the department since I think 2009, 2010. So it's been about 13, 14 years now, and it's been an incredible journey. I joined the Diploma in Sanskrit course initially at the department, and I worked my way through most of the courses offered by the department till my PhD started a few years ago. It's been an amazing journey, I must say, and the deep and expansive learning from the best of the professors, Dr. Gauri Mahulikar, Dr. Madhvi Narsale, Dr. Suchitra Tajne, and of course my guide, Dr. Shakuntala Gaude, who is also the HOD of the department. It's been a matter of great pride, actually, that the department is hosting this lecture series on the Indian knowledge systems to herald in the 60th year, the Hirakotsav or the Diamond Jubilee year celebrations of the Sanskrit department. I am honored to be a part of this celebration, and I would like to thank Dr. Shakuntala Gaude for asking me to contribute towards this lecture series. The topic of my lecture is Mysticism as seen in the Indian knowledge systems. Now, Indian knowledge systems is too vast and encompasses the vast, boundless literature that has been amassed over the centuries by our great sages and thinkers. I will attempt to touch upon the aspects of mysticism as found in our core texts, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Darshanas, primarily Sankhya and Yoga, and I will try to touch upon the Puranas as well. Now, let's start with the word mysticism. Uh, this is a word of Western influence, largely influenced by Western ideas of God. The word is derived from the Greek word whose meaning is to conceal, to close, to cover. Another meaning of the word is also to initiate, which makes a lot of sense when viewed from the teacher student traditions. Now, this word is still in use colloquially in Greece with the meanings induct, initiate, train, familiarize, or give first hand experience of something. But the word mysticism has evolved to mean union with the absolute, with the infinite, or with God. Now, this is a very one dimensional definition, as this throws up more questions than answers, and especially so in the Indian context. Now, questions like what is the meaning of union? What does the preposition with imply in this particular instance? And of course, the definition and understanding of the concept of the absolute or the infinite or God, which appears to be so very different in each and every religion. Now, this definition has very broad applications. It does not tie down with the idea of mysticism within very definitive limits. It then includes within its span a very broad range of religious traditions or practices that have had at their foundation authoritative texts that describe thoughts and practices of the old and the mystical experience as the key element. Now, the above details can be found in all religious traditions in a variety of combinations. Unfortunately, this has also come to mean that anything that cannot be explained by logic then becomes mystical. Logic, as we understand it, is reasoning assessed according to the strict principles of validity. Simply put, this means that for any thought to be logical, we must have a set of generally acceptable reasonings. Hence, for example, when one sees smoke, we can presume that there is fire that is creating that smoke. This has basis in the previously established knowledge that fire creates smoke and the eyes see the smoke. Logic itself depends on common experience and understanding, which may be very limited. Thus, what does not fall in the ambit of common experience and understanding could and has often been labeled as mysticism. We have now tried to understand what mysticism is in the common sense of the word. We will now go towards certain definitions which describe mysticism very clearly. The first definition I'm going to take up is that of John Gerson. He has described mysticism as mystical theology is an experiential knowledge of God that comes through an embrace of unitive love. The next one is William James, who is the author of the very insightful book, The Varieties of Religious Experience, he defines he prefers to define mysticism by way of four qualities. The first one is ineffability, which means that the experience defies expression. Neotic quality, meaning that the experience leaves the experiencer with enhanced knowledge. Transiency means that the experience is fleeting. And for a better word to describe it is just brief. It is transient. The experience is just transient. It comes and goes. It does not stay for long. The experience cannot be sustained for long. And lastly, passivity means that the experience makes itself available when the seeker is passive, okay, and not actively looking for the experience. Another author, Evelyn Underhill, says that she understands mysticism as the innate tendency of the human spirit towards complete harmony with the transcendental order, whatever be the theological formula under which the order is understood. I find these definitions very useful in understanding the term, but somehow they seem unable to represent the Indian thought very well. So, in this context, R.D.Ranade has tremendous works to his credit, where he has expanded the idea of mysticism in view of Indian philosophy and traditions. He defines mysticism as that attitude of the mind which involves a direct, immediate, first hand, intuitive apprehension of God. I find this definition to be a little all encompassing. So I'll just repeat it, for refined understanding. He defines mysticism as an attitude of the mind which involves a direct, immediate, first hand, intuitive apprehension of God. So, at the core of mysticism is only one thing, and that is experience of God. It's the experience that matters. Everything, all attempts, all philosophy, all traditions, everything has only this one object as their goal, an experience of God, or a step further, merger with the absolute entity. Now, this has been explained by Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, who says mysticism is the first hand experience of direct intercourse with God and the theologic metaphysical doctrine of the soul's possible union with the absolute reality. Now, cut to the present day, Sadhguru Jaki Vasudev says, what cannot be contained in the logical or what cannot be perceived by the senses, sense perceptions, is what we are referring to as mystical. That dimension of truth that cannot be boxed into your logical mind is being labeled as mystical, he says. He further says intelligence beyond logic is what you refer to as God. Mysticism, he says, is like pure science, and I really liked what he had presented. He says, the way he presents this, he says, mysticism is like pure science. It has no uses, it is just a human longing to know. So, what is real already exists. The human mind, the human being is trying to get there to understand what is it that exists. So, Sadhguru makes a very clear distinction. He states that logic cannot explain mysticism. Mysticism is something that is already there, and one needs to step back from orderly logic, from all the information that is stored in one's memory in order to grasp the divine. After knowing, understanding, ruminating on all the definitions stated previously, we take a look at the primary texts in the Indian knowledge systems. What are they? The Vedas. What are the Vedas? They are a culmination of knowledge over a vastly long period of time that points in the direction or towards the ultimate. The seers and the sages that contributed to this knowledge forged ever breaking advanced methods of approaching that ultimate by making use of their environments, the elements available in their environments or surroundings, the techniques they found in their long and intense meditations, and so on. Now, Dr. Das Gupta, who has written very good books on, on mysticism also, and of the Indian knowledge systems as well, he says about Vedic sacrifice. I'm going to read a little bit from his book right now. He says that the idea of a sacrifice is entirely different from anything found in the other races. For within the Vedic people, the sacrifices were more powerful than the gods. The gods could be pleased or displeased. If the sacrifices were duly performed, the prayers were bound to be fulfilled. So, are they touching the ultimate over here, bypassing the gods? Is it something like that? We'll find out. So, accuracy of the yajnas or the sacrifices was of utmost importance. Accuracy of performance and pronunciations, very, very important. The evidence that is presented to us in the late Vedic and non late Vedic periods, the records there containing descriptions of these sacrifices and discussions respecting their value, convinces us beyond doubt that it was a performance of these sacrifices, perfect in every detail, in accordance with the dictates of the sacrificial manuals, the Brahmanas, that was believed to be capable of producing everything that a man could desire. Two definitive characteristics emerge from these. First, the transcendent, mysterious, and secret power of the sacrifice, replacing the natural forces personified as gods, the ultimate superiority of the Vedas as the source of all truths and as the unchallengeable dictators of our duties, leading to our material well being and happiness. The assumption of the mysterious omnipotence of the sacrifices performed by following the authoritative injunctions of the Vedas independently of reason or logical and discursive thought forms the chief trait of the mysticism of the Vedic time. There is nothing here of feeling or even of intellect, but a blind submission, he says, not to a person but to an impersonal authority, which holds within it an unalterable or indestructible law, the secret of all powers, which we may want to wield in our favor. So this, according to Dasgupta, is the Vedic sacrificial mysticism, and it passed through some stages to the Upanishadic mysticism. The next step is in the development of Vedic type of mysticism was the intellectualization of the material sacrifices. And thus meditation by substitution became important as the power of sacrifice were transferred to it. Powers of sacrifice were transferred to it. Now Dr. Mankar in his book Mysticism in the Rig Veda says that the mystics constantly speak of their ecstasy and visions. Vedic mysticism proceeds along two lines. The mystics always carry the search for reality by introspection and also try to have a unifying vision. And by these processes, they came to realize the existence of the self and of the Ekam Sat. Now, the first perceives the self of the man by inward researches, and the other perceives unity outside by seeing the ground stuff of all external phenomena. The first leads as the concept of Atman, and the other leads us to the concept of Brahman. The first leads us to the perception of the divine element and the ethical excellence of the inward reality, and the other leads us to the perception of law, order, harmony, and delight outside. It is when these two streams that are really widely divergent, they mingle and interpenetrate, that the conception of the identity, the eternal quest of the Indian philosophers and the mystics that has been Amrita and Madhu. Now, Upanishadic mysticism, the Vedas are the hymns to the various nature deities that the Vedic people observed around them. The Brahmanas are the ritual ceremonies associated with the hymns. The Aranyakas shed off into the Upanishads just as the Brahmanas shed off into the Aranyakas. Upanishadic mysticism is more internalized. It's an individual's quest to reach the ultimate. Hymns to the gods to the and the goddesses are replaced by a search for the reality underlying the flux of things. What is that which, being known, everything becomes known? This is in the Kena Upanishad. Then the Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi from the Chandogya Upanishad, Aham Brahmasmi from Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, Prajnanam Brahma from Aitareya Upanishad, and Ayam Atma Brahma from Mandukya Upanishad all point to the nature of the ultimate. This is a more intellectual search for the ultimate. Many Vedantic schools have their own interpretation of the Mahavakyas. Now, there is an attempt to explain the nature of the ultimate, as in the dialogue between the Uddalaka and Shvetaketu, where the ultimate is explained as the finest essence that pervades the entirety of creation. Wow, one can find the reference of this in Jnaneshwari of Jnaneshwar, also where he explains the ultimate to be like the thread, like that thread in the string of pearls, without which the pearls just will be everywhere, but they are together because of that string. The Vedas and the Upanishads, for the most part, explain the nature of the ultimate, and hence they form the core texts on which are based the methods to approach the ultimate. Because the ultimate is something that cannot be grasped within our limited understanding, methods such as Sankhya and Yoga are used to refine the human body to attain the ultimate. The Sankhya system yet falls under the intellectual category, where the objective is to go from understanding the outer environment and then progressing towards the inner self. Sankhya believes that a detailed understanding and realization of the 25 elements that make up the creation leads to Kaivalya or the ultimate state. Its twin yoga, which is also known as Seshwar Sankhya, gives a much detailed progressive method towards unity with the ultimate. It recognizes that the purpose of human life is to find its way back to this original state of pure consciousness, the state of the ultimate, a state of aligning energies, thus resulting in unity with this ultimate. It is a journey back to the state of the ultimate by retracing creation in its reverse. How is that achieved through yoga? We need to understand that the human body is a very refined machine which has been made available to a soul to enable this journey. The essence of yoga is that one absolutely needs to achieve stillness or one pointed concentration. For this, it is absolutely necessary to have the spine, the neck, and the head in a straight line and to hold it steady for long periods of time during meditation. Yoga is a set of techniques aimed at training the human body towards disciplining the mind, thus achieving one pointed concentration. Now, Swami Vivekananda, in his most popular and powerful work Raja Yoga, says that God is an experience and that each man is only a conduit for the infinite ocean of knowledge and power that lies behind mankind. He further says that all the orthodox systems of Indian philosophy have one goal in view, the liberation of the soul through perfection, and the method is by yoga. Now, yoga is the method that attempts to harness the incredible power of the mind and to guide it in the direction of unity with divinity by way of stillness of the mind. The Yoga Shikhopanishad says that the motionless state of the mind is known as liberation or moksha or a state of merging with the divine. Now, there are many techniques that have come up over the centuries that culminate under the broad umbrella of yoga, but all the methods follow of yoga follow a broad common root, which is the Ashtanga Yoga propounded by Patanjali, the doyen of yoga, on whose Patanjali Yoga Sutras are based all the other traditions of yoga. Patanjali Yoga Sutras is considered as a yoga darshan, meaning that it is a method to achieve higher states of consciousness or perception to go beyond the mind and the senses. Essentially, Patanjali Yoga Sutras is a practical manual with precise directions on the pathway to the ultimate by way of sustained yogic practices. These practices are broadly divided into two parts, Bahiranga Yoga, which is also known as the external stages, and Antaranga Yoga, known as internal stages. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, and Pratyahara are the stages of Bahiranga Yoga, which are very essential and form the foundation for the next stages of Antaranga Yoga. Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi form the stages of Antaranga Yoga. The state of Samadhi, which is defined as a stream of continuous unbroken consciousness, has 10 well defined states. This is very important as each of these states of Samadhi can be said to be the states of merger, though they cannot be the ultimate merger. Each state is more progressive than the one before it, and the aspect of merger more deep and more enhanced. It is only after the state of Asmita Samadhi that when the aspirant pushes himself or herself beyond the realms of Prakriti that one attains Kaivalya, or the state of ultimate merger from which then there is no return, or rather, there is no need to take a rebirth. This can be a stage of Jivan Mukta. Now, all this is theory and can be only ratified by aspirants who have reached those stages. We do have first hand experiences of sages who have reached those states, but because of the ineffable aspect where it is very difficult to explain those states, is why we are unable to really understand what they are trying to say. But we can also look at the narratives from epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana and also at the Puranas, which are a wealth of information. For example, let us consider the Bhagavad Puran. The Bhagavad Puran discusses in detail the method of meditation with the help of focus on various parts of Vishnu. Okay, for example, in the Kapila Devahuti narrative, Devahuti starts her meditation on Vishnu's form, fixing her thought on his entire being and then in parts. Interestingly, Devahuti's intense focus leads her to contemplate on her own self as projected everywhere, set aside by the realization of its true nature, the limitations imposed on it by the modes of Prakriti. This indicates that Devahuti, witnessing the last stage of Sabija Samadhi, the end of the realm of Prakriti. In another narrative, Shuka explains the practice of meditation to Parikshit, following the same pattern of focus on Vishnu, and then progressively meditates on on any one limb of Vishnu till the aspirant reaches a stage where there is complete absorption and cessation of thoughts, a state of supreme reality of Vishnu, by attaining which the mind is filled with ecstasy of divine love. This is a stage of merger where the aspirant identifies himself with Vishnu. This is the merger with Vishnu. Brahma's sons, Sanaka and others, reach Vishnu's abode, Vaikuntha, by the dint of their Yogamaya. This is also one of their narratives in Bhagavad Puran. And despite being self realized, they consider Vishnu as the goal of their samadhi, suggesting Sabija Samadhi. Okay. Shuka describes the final dissolution where Prakriti too merges in God. The yogi becomes all blissful and merges with that pure blissful form in the ultimate, who is perfectly tranquil and bliss itself, attaining liberation. Sanaka and his brothers, on seeing Vishnu, thrills them in the body as well as in mind, and they are immersed in the joy of oneness with the Absolute. This is merger. This is mysticism. This is merging with the ultimate. Kapila describes a state of joy and bliss and intense love of the aspirant for Vishnu, gradually withdrawing from the object of meditation. Even the mind beholds pervading everywhere the one absolute, having no distinction of subject, object, and so on. This is the state of complete merger. This is where the yogi realizes the truth of the Supreme Self. Further, in another instance, following the path shown by Kapila, Devahuti, his mother, attains the final beatitude, being firmly established in Brahma and has no more thought of herself as the Jiva. This is also mysticism. Dhruva, also attaining the truth where he is lost in samadhi, abandons the thought of the cosmic body, is rid of self identification with his body, and loses consciousness even of his own individuality. This losing consciousness of one own self and merging into a bigger reality is mysticism. Also, Rishabhadeva, this is also one narrative in the Bhagavad Puran. Rishabhadeva, who is a ray of Vishnu himself, is known as Kaivalyapati. Okay, so the term Kaivalya in Patanjali Yoga Sutras as an involution of gunas because of the fulfillment of their purpose, or it is a restoration of Purusha to its natural form, which is pure consciousness. This is merger, this is mysticism. The aspect of Nirbija Samadhi is clearly observed in the narratives which I mentioned previously. Self realization being core to this state. There remains no distinction or no differentiation between the self and the supreme, indicating merger and union with the supreme or the ultimate. So, this is my attempt at explaining or trying to explain mysticism in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, through Sankhya and Yoga as methods. Actually, it's a much vaster, much bigger topic, and I hope I made a little bit of contribution towards it today. Thank you very much, and I wish the Department of Sanskrit the very best. And thank you for inviting me. It's been an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you.